to Sterling Shaw. Welcome, Sterling.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. I'm going to share my screen. I think I'd be more skilled at doing this since I do it on a regular basis.
You're great.
It's good.
Okay. All right. Hopefully you guys are seeing my my painting up there.
Yep.
All right. So I was thinking that I would show a little bit of my work, talk about my process, and a little bit about my career, getting here. So just as an introduction, if you don't know me, I'm a painter. I've been working in Philadelphia for some time, if you're familiar with my work, you already know this, but I'm you might say obsessed with painting the nude. I have a passion for it. I'm okay with a landscape, with a still life, a city scene or something like that. But nothing brings me the same kind of joy and engagement as working with the figure. Here's an example of my work right here. This painting is called Twins. It's kind of large, about a 48 by 72 inch. Was that 4 by 6 feet? Pretty big. I put it up here because it's one of the paintings I'm most proud of. Maybe not my best. I don't know. I might not be the best judge of that, but I feel such a connection with this work. So there it is. Oh, can everybody hear me? Okay, you don't hear my air conditioner in the background. All right, awesome. Just going to show you some examples of my work before we move on. This painting is called Curator. It's about a 12 by 16 inch painting in acrylic, and from about a few years ago, maybe 2013, 2014 or something like that. So I can engage with a portrait, as well as I do with the figure, but my passion is for the body, painting the body. This is kind of a self-portrait with myself as the model, and it's called Grapes. This painting is very small. It's about it's either 4 by 4 inch or 6 by 6 inch painting on a panel. And let me just show you a couple more before we move on here. This is one of my paintings surrounding the idea of Pentecost. I grew up very religious, and I have these kind of related paintings that I'll talk more about as we go on, but just here it is as an introduction. And this is my Seraphin, my many-winged angel drawing. This one is also fairly large. I think about maybe 30 by 40 inch, done in graphite. So I just wanted to show you really quick, just a few examples of, the kinds of things that, that I do. But so I'll tell you about my, my career and everything. So I grew up in Philadelphia, mostly South Philadelphia, but I moved around a lot. I got this screen grab from Google Maps. This is my old block on 5th and Snyder. No matter what angle I took this screen grab from, I got this guy in it, no matter what angle. So he's a star of it. But it looks different today than it used to. But so I grew up in South Philly, and I don't know if you ever heard this saying about South Philly, when people move out, you move out and then you move down the street or something. So this house right here I lived here. This was also my grandfather's house. This is my uncle's house here. This is my great grandmother's house. Across the street was my great uncle's house, her side. And then at the corner, which is not pictured. Oh wait, I do have a picture. The church that my great great grandfather founded. So we're like, the whole block, and I'm sure a lot of people have that same, from the area, have that same kind of family connection in an area. My first real exposure to art outside of, you know, cartoons and drawing monsters and things like that were the old encyclopedias in my great grandmother's house. She had these very old books that were, I think, printed in like the 40s or something like that. Like they had terms in them like, Negroid, Mongoloid, things that you wouldn't see in a book, nowhere near a book today. And the only thing they had in color, it was all printed in black and white. The only thing they had in color in the books were the paintings. So I would look at these books and, I think maybe due to the times that they were printed in, they had a very conservative presentation of fine art. It was all this kind of thing, the classics, the old masters. And, I became inspired by these. This is a Caravaggio deposition, or excuse me, I think it's rather called the Entombment. But, it was one of the most exciting things for me was to go over to my great grandmother's house, look through these encyclopedias, go to P for painting, see what they had, just thumb through all those pages and come across the random artists that they would present it. Artists like Caravaggio were one of the people that left a mark on me, as well as Vermeer. This is Vermeer's Milkmaid. I think I can close my eyes and describe this whole thing. I've looked at it so often. We have Titian here. That was another big one for me, and Rubens. I was a big Rubens fan. I can't recall if this actual painting appeared in the encyclopedias. I think they tended to avoid nudity in those in those books. But paintings like this always meant a lot to me, and Rubens has a similar, I think I would say, passion for the figure. So when I look at a Rubens like this, when I would look at his paintings, the star for me, the big draw, the thing that I would respond to was his treatment of, his treatment of the body. The way he painted all of these folds, the volume that he achieved, the attention paid to all of these things, these creases, the kind of realness that you would get from bodies like his, and bodies like Caravaggio's and things like that. That stuff I really responded to, and in my own work, I could paint a knee for hours. This is like a close-up of one of my paintings. I can sit here and try to record every change, every fold, every kind of planar difference on that knee. Try to like express the character of it, because every knee has its own character. And try to get that across. I could just sit there all day and try to express that. Here's another detail. For me, trying to get the particular formation of these fingers to the thumb, is something that, out of the whole painting, the things that really kind of keep me going back to it. Things like painting the folds in the back, all of these plane changes, how they're all affected by this light versus that light, this cool light versus this warm light, how deep these shadows go, what kind of shadows get cast by these changes in the body. Here's another just kind of close up of that same figure. All of that stuff, trying to get that change there, that warm to cool to warm transition that happens, trying to like accurately represent the back of this person that models for me. That stuff is like, it's kind of all about that for me. And I think that, there's probably a direct connection between looking at those old Rubens things and, and the things that I'm kind of passionate about now. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but I feel like that's a fairly obvious one. So I took a lot of, drawing classes when I was a kid. My mother was very encouraging. I didn't find out until later, actually, until I was an adult, that she went to art school herself, but she never finished. But growing up, she was just so encouraging. She always, made a way for me to work, to draw, she'd come home on a regular basis with like a blank tablet or something for me, and I would just fill that thing up. And, you get them at the supermarket for like $1 or something. It was great. I couldn't have asked for a more encouraging atmosphere. But so finally, I went to the High School for the Creative Performing Arts in Philly, which is, a magnet school. They have things like dance, music, instrumental music, writing, visual arts, all that stuff. And for me, that was a real, it was a great experience because I got a lot of actual training for the things that I wanted to do. And I got exposure to things that perhaps I wasn't, exposed to before. And so it was through that school that I took a drawing class at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. They had this high school program. And I think when I did it, it was like, I don't know, one of the first few years that they had it. This was like a 99 or 2000. But I took a drawing class there where you would actually draw the nude. You'd have to get permission from your parents. My mom had to sign this thing that said it was okay. And, I remember being in the room let me see, that's where the high school moved later. I don't know why that's in there, Ridgeway Library. I remember being in the room with the model. And I remember before getting there, feeling very nervous about that kind of setup. Not the least because of the way I grew up. As I might have mentioned, I grew up very religious, like kind of very conservative in that way. Like the idea of being in a in the room with like a nude person was just like, it was, I don't know, I felt a challenge. Of course, you guys understand. I don't think you have to grow up conservative for that to be challenging for, a high school student. But I remember getting there and feeling like I was home, feeling like, oh, this is the thing that I really want to work with. Like, I saw the figure and I saw like possibilities, and I saw options, and I saw I don't know, a way to make something that I just hadn't seen before for myself. So I feel like that, taking that kind of drawing class, that was really that was it for me. I was already decided after doing that going to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts was where I would go after high school, and that's where I did go. Here it is pictured here. The working with the nude, working with the figure, drawing and painting and stuff, that was like a very, it was something I did all the time. Another kind of large presence in my life was my my church, which I found a little screen grab here of it at 40th and Lancaster. And of course, it looks completely different. If you know anything about the area, that it kind of changes a lot. We were in church, let me see, 5 days a week. There was Tuesday night prayer, Wednesday night Bible study, Thursday night choir rehearsal, Friday night service, Sunday service. It was like church was an ever-present thing, you know, and I was very, very committed to it. But of course, it was, as I said, kind of conservative. So we didn't have things like you can see out in front of here, you know, you got your cross there. That was about as much as we had for the kind of visual representation. You know, there was nothing like, you know, a kind of Catholic church where you got paintings, you got statues, you have all those things. So like looking at those encyclopedias and seeing those, you know, religious paintings, paintings of Christ, paintings of this biblical scene, that biblical scene, it was almost a little bit like illicit or something. Like you know, like I was kind of doing something I shouldn't, looking at these things. But you know, that response was there for me. So I was, you know, I was into it. I was committed to it. So, but anyway, so when I got to PAFA, it basically just kind of opened up more opportunities for me. It really was inspiring, and I saw kind of a way that I could be an artist, you know, for real, you know, make a life as an artist. At PAFA, I studied with a lot of really, really great people, but some of the most influential were people like Sidney Goodman. In my first year there, I had a drawing class with him. I think it was one of the last classes he taught there. Liz Osborne, who was very, very important for me. She was a very encouraging teacher, and she was very good about like kind of practical things about, you know, being an artist, being a creative person. Renee Folks, whose technique I learned a lot from, you know, you can see that kind of highly polished representation. And Peter Payon, who was a great mentor for me, and I would call a friend. He also grew up in South Philly and around the same area, of course, many years before. Walking the halls of PAFA, you might have seen me carrying around a big, thick book that was Salvador Dali's autobiography. I kind of cringe when I think about it now, carrying that thing around, but his work was just very inspirational to me at the time. And I know everybody goes through their kind of Dali phase, you know, but yeah, that stuff hit me really hard. I really responded to, you know, the attention to detail, the attention paid to the body, to the figure, as well as the kind of imaginative space that you could place the figure in, you know, and things like what happens when you change context, you know, when you put the figure in this space versus that space, you know. If you know, you can look at my the paintings I showed you earlier and definitely see the kind of the idea of, you know, not exactly a representational space, but kind of more of an imaginative space for my figures. Anyway, so I spent some time at PAFA, and I got the opportunity through a prize to travel to Italy. And, you know, talk about influences. You know, I was able to go to the place where all of these paintings that I'd been influenced by were actually made. You know, I was able to see these things in person, and you know, it was just such a thrill for me. You know, the person I traveled with, we spent every day going to little churches, going to museums. I mean, we'd end the day exhausted and a little dehydrated, but like very satisfied, you know. I got to see a few of my favorite works there, like the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa, that's Bernini. And this is, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Tiepolo, Tiepolo's Virgin. I brought those up because I think those two were maybe the most influential pieces that I saw there. So I got back from Italy, you know, inspired, ready to make work, graduated from PAFA, and now I was ready to like, okay, I'm ready to be an artist. You know, I had all these examples of artists from my teachers, Peter and Renee and all those other people that I mentioned, people that I didn't mention, who are these professional artists. So I had this very clear idea of what an artist was. It was like, okay, you have free time all day. You know, you go in the studio, you make a painting, you get dirty, you play some jazz in the background, and you know, you just have all day. You take a break. Maybe you go out and have a coffee or something for a couple hours. Go back in the studio. What that kind of vision didn't factor in is how do you make money while you're while you're doing that. And so the answer for me was retail. So here I am at Utrecht, which is not there anymore, and the one at 20th and Chestnut. I have so many Utrecht logos on me. I'm like a NASCAR, but for me, that was the way to do it. So I began working there, I think about 3 days a week. And I was like, okay, I work here 3 days a week, 4 days a week, I'll paint. Okay, so that worked out for a while, but working 3 days a week, it begins to get a little difficult to pay rent. Okay, I'll work 4 days a week. My compromise. 4 days a week turns into 5, and then suddenly I have 2 days out of the week to make work, and I'm spending all my time putting stock away and putting out price tags and stuff like that. So I had to kind of figure out, how do I fit in this thing that I care about? How do I keep making work? Like I'm working here so I can buy materials so I can make these paintings, but I don't have time to do it. I mean, it took a decision to be committed to making the work. You know, I had to kind of prioritize making my work that I felt so strongly about over anything else. But of course I had to live. So for me, it was trying to figure out when is the best time for me to do stuff. I mean, you know, I'm working during the day, during business hours. So I have the night, I have the morning. Well, if you know me, or after 6, 7 o'clock, I'm done. I'm no good. I'm a vegetable at that point. So it had to be the morning. So I said, okay, I'll wake up while it's still dark. I'll get up, I'll paint until I have to go to work, and I go to work. And I eventually found a routine in that. I would get up, 4 or 5 in the morning, I'd paint for a while, go to work around, 8:30, 8, something like that. And for years that worked out for me. I was able to make the kind of work I was interested in. I was able to, as a side benefit of working in retail, engage with other artists just on a regular basis. That was great. And, obviously there's the benefit of like reduced materials costs with the discount, so that worked out for me really well for quite a while. Another kind of challenge you face going out of school where things are provided for you is, where are you going to work? Finding the space to work. You gotta, or what I had to do was figure out how to turn anything into a studio. I think my first studio was a kitchen in my friend's apartment. I had like kind of, 6 feet or so of floor space and an easel. And when they moved out, I was on my knees scraping up paint off the floor of the kitchen. So I had so many studios that were, bedrooms, the corner of a bedroom. Um, this is kind of a later studio for me, in a space that I split with my wife, but same kind of thing. You're kind of finding space around your bed, and storing your materials in the closet or something like that. Eventually, I was able to find a pretty cheap studio out in Kensington, at the paper mill. And here is a little bit of a glimpse of it, and me posing for a painting that never turned into a painting. Oh, actually, I think I did end up using this photo to turn into a painting. But here's a little bit glimpse of my studio at the paper mill. It's about, I think, like 110 square feet or something like that. I don't know, maybe I have that number wrong. It wasn't that big. You can kind of see, space was at a premium, so you had to use what you had, use what you got. Here's another view of it. The orange walls, not my choice. They were orange when I moved in, but I was about to repaint the walls after, so I embraced it. I use a little bit of orange and yellow in my work anyway, so that works out. Here is what ends up in every studio I move in, whether it's a kitchen or a bedroom or an actual studio space, is this kind of, my kind of wall of inspiration. You can see my Bernini, got a little Caravaggio in there, some Pompeii, a little bit of everything, some Picasso. The elements may change, but they always come with me. So eventually I was able to, as I said, move into a studio in Kensington, and then later to a studio in West Philly. And I'll show you this studio because it was my favorite space I ever worked in. It was in a church, a former church, where I think part of the church was used for like an activist group. They would have meetings, and then they had this unoccupied area of the church that was just sitting there. So I think somebody was like, "Hey, we can rent this out to artists because they'll work anywhere, anywhere they can." So about 4 of us moved into this church space. We had these big windows that were great. And they were just the 4 walls was just a big open space. So we're kind of on the honor system as far as how much space we were taking up versus what we paid for. Here's another view. That's kind of the end of my, it's my invisible wall right there, which extends a little bit out into that space. So that was a great space to work in, and I made a lot of paintings that I really love in that space. They did get kind of dark working in that space for some reason. Like a lot of these kind of darker paintings with a actual darker background were made in that space. You can kind of see it a little bit when you look into the background here. But anyway, so that's just a little bit about the studio. So when I got out of school, I didn't really know what I wanted to, exactly what kind of paintings I wanted to make. I knew what kind of elements I wanted. So this was, I think, the first painting I made outside of school. This was the one done in the kitchen, which was not a great space to work in. So that's why only one painting came out of it. It's about a 36 by 36 painting. It's called My Telling You a Secret. This painting, I think, was the second painting I made out of school, and it's called A Growth I Gained abroad, and I think when I was painting it, I was just thinking about my experience traveling and the kind of the growth that I saw as a result of being able to experience another country, another place, looking at all this work that was important to me. That is, I think, about the same size, a 36 square. Sorry, just a minute. This painting, which I love so much, kind of a 4 by 5 foot, I believe, or 4 by 6 foot painting, got damaged. So I don't have a better photo of it, but it was up in a show, and I wasn't able to be there for the deinstallation, so a guy was carrying it, and he tripped, and the painting fell into the corner of another painting, which just like ripped it right down the middle of there. Someone has the painting. I gave it to someone. They mended it, but so I'm just showing you these. These are some of the earlier things, and I don't know, maybe there's a kind of progression there, but I'm trying to figure out what is it that I'm passionate about. Like I know that I have a love for the figure, but how do I present that? How do I how do I express that? I kind of work with things that I respond to. The figure is always there, the model's always there because that's something that I respond to. But what else ends up in the painting is kind of a result of a lot of sketching and drawing and collage work and things like that. And I'll show you a little bit of my process a little later. So here are a few more kind of early paintings. This is a chance of showers. And one of the things that I love about this painting is that some people see that red area and they see hair, and some people see fire, and I like that you see both. I'm really into the idea that you look at a thing, and no matter what I intend, you kind of have your own experience of it, your own journey of it, and I like kind of encouraging that kind of openness, encouraging that kind of ambiguity. I think we get more out of stuff like that than being told what to expect, personally. This is another early one. I believe this one is called New Growth. These are all kind of old, and I haven't looked at them for a while. But yeah, so this is New Growth. At this point, these paintings are large, about 4 foot by 4 foot. Painting large nudes, not a great idea if you want to sell paintings, just FYI, unless you have an international reputation. You're going to end up with a stack of them in your studio. I can attest to that. But you are going to tell me to paint smaller at that point. This is Tell It on the Mountain, another kind of really large, large figure painting. I enjoy painting that bird the most. Some of these backgrounds, some of these spaces that you see are invented and the result of sketches, and some are from found photos or something like that. Excuse me. This is communication with the Almighty. This is one of the larger paintings, about 60 by 60 square. I remember a lot of talk about the kind of Jesus fish, at the time. And if you ask me then, I could talk a lot about a lot about it. Not so much now because it's been a while. So that was the early stuff. This stuff gets a little bit later, and as I mentioned earlier, if you see a dark painting like this, it's probably from that church studio, which was a dark space, ultimately. This is in the room. This is about a 3 by 4 foot painting. And, the face and the knee, I think probably has the most attention in the painting. As I mentioned, those are the things that I kind of really engage with, are showing these details. And though I love the painting, the hardest part of it for me was going through all of these flowers. I don't know if you ever tried to paint flowers, but it's not easy. Some people make it look easy. It is not. It is not easy. There's a close-up of that painting, and I'm showing it because when I was painting it, I felt like I was walking like a high wire or something. It went through so many stages, so many back and forths. It looked right. It didn't look right. I like the color. I didn't like the color. This eye is too high. This eye is too low. This plane is not turning, et cetera, et cetera. You can see the kind of construction lines that I ended up using for guidance in these paintings, which brings me to another point. Different stages of these of the final painting, or rather the final painting, you'll see at different stages of kind of finish. I'm not a believer that you have to polish every single inch of a surface to call a painting done. I think there was a point in time where that was, it was kind of necessary to call your painting finished. But at this point, things like that, it's the discretion of the artist. You're kind of, you're expressing yourself, and the whole thing is open. So I get to a point in the painting where I feel like I've made my statement. I've said what I wanted to say, and then I move on. So that's sometimes a hard thing to decide. I think especially when you have a little bit of a kind of classical training. You finish, you go through your steps, you finish your painting off, and that's it. But I don't know. I feel like I don't want the painting to kind of die on the vine. I kind of want to just make my statement. I back away, and there it is. This painting here, this is called Twins. Oh no, excuse me. This painting is called the Actors. This is 48 by 60. Kind of a big one.
Oh, sorry, that I was just saying that's a great skill to have, because I always feel like I always overwork everything. So just to know when to walk away.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I know when to walk away. I just know that I do, but I appreciate that. This, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I can't remember the name of this painting. I do remember painting the whole thing, and this was the knee that I showed you guys earlier. I wish I included a detail of the toes, little areas like that where you can show kind of individual differences. It's amazing. You get taught anatomy, and they use these kind of generic skeletons, generic structure for things. But the more you paint, the more you draw and stuff, you begin to notice everyone's knee is different. This knee is different. That knee, this toe is different. That toe, this thigh, this elbow, this armpit, this fold, that fold. And one of the things that I kind of delight in is kind of showing that that uniqueness from person to person. This is a self-portrait that was purchased recently, actually, by the fellowship of at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. And the reason I'm showing this, I want to talk a little bit more about like influences, particularly these these floating hands. So I'm a fan of the artist Giotto. You might be familiar with. He has that very like kind of iconic blue, and there are these, I would call them, I guess they're early Renaissance, you might say, paintings. Very influential on me as well. Kind of not in the same way as those very fleshy, Rubens and Caravaggio paintings, but it holds a place in my heart. So these floating hands, I can't take credit for it because I saw it first in a Giotto. You can see his stuff like this appearing in his paintings from time to time, and angels floating in and out of space. Not just in his work, but also in Fra Angelico, who is also a very important artist for me. Anyway, I wanted to show that because I just to kind of talk about some of the ways these paintings are made. I'll come up with an idea or something, and then I'll do several drawings, but I'll be influenced by all of these other things as well. And as I said, I like to work with the things that I respond to. So if I'm looking at this Fra Angelico painting, and I'm like, God, I love these weird floating hands, I want to incorporate it some way. It might show up in a painting. So sometimes my paintings will begin as like a kind of detailed sketch like this. This is done with graphite, so graphite drawing. This turned into this painting, which was purchased actually by the Woodmere Museum. It's in their collection a couple of years ago. Excuse me. But more often, things will start off like this, this kind of very sketchy process, without direction, just kind of drawing the things that come to me and sitting with it for a while and kind of figuring out, why did I draw this? What is it that I want from it? What should I be taking from it? Is there something I can do with it? I have a lot of sketches like this. Some turn into paintings, some don't. Drawings in my sketchbook, drawings on napkins. Sometimes we end up with notes. I've got like a little to-do list over here, little playlist, Pandora's Lunchbox. I don't even know if that place is still there. And then, those things will go through different, iterations. And sometimes what you see is what you get in a painting, very little distance between there. As I look at this now, I kind of wish I kept the hand in the bottom there, but sometimes there's a very direct relationship between that sketch and the final painting. So we have my belt of thorns crucifixion. Here we go. Sometimes a sketch by itself, a sketch will go through different stages, as I mentioned. This is very much just another version of this thing here, which has, very specific notes: expressive green grass, solid night blue. Boom, we got our space, we got our figure, done. I don't know what I was talking about here, by the way. No idea. Oh, okay, that's a good idea. I might do that. But so that sketch turns into this, this panel. This is, I think, a 4x4 foot square. That panel turned into this little guy right here. So, sometimes these things will go through multiple stages before we end up with our final piece. And here's the actual final painting. That's a 6-inch by 6-inch square. I had some grand ideas with that scale, but here we are. That's what we ended up with. So in between the kind of sketchy drawing stage here and the final painting, I will hire a model. So once I have enough of those sketches sitting around that I feel like I can turn into a few different paintings. Let's see that chat here.
Sorry, I feel like I keep interrupting you.
No, it's
chatting.
Well, no, I thank you. That the yellow underpainting, I can't remember the origin of it, but it's something that I've been using for some time. For that reason, I really enjoy that. You know what it was? When I was a student, I would paint my canvas black and then paint on top of that. And I end up with these very kind of moody, dark paintings. I had a teacher tell me, I think it was Peter P.L., and he was like, whatever you put down first will influence the entire rest of the painting. And I think that probably is when I started thinking about using different colored grounds. But so when I have enough sketches lying around that I think I can turn into maybe 3 or 4 paintings, then I will hire a model, and have a model come by to the studio. Usually, I'm the nervous one in the situation, and the model is usually very relaxed. I'll take photos, set up my lighting, take a photo in this position, that position, raise your arm here, twist around that way, things like that. And then I'll take that and I'll do a kind of, at this point, a digital collage of the things that I want in the painting based off of the sketch. So, I'll look at the sketch and I'll say, okay, flowers, cloud, this, that. I do a lot of Googling, a lot of searching, and then, become a big fan of the, intelligent scissors and GIMP or Photoshop. And, I end up with these digital collages that get to different stages. Sometimes they don't go as far as, this looks very much like, it has all the elements that ended up in the actual painting, but, this, for example, does not. But anyway, so, I'll do those collages and I'll paint from them. In the past, I would just, take a bunch of photos, tack them up on the wall or something and work that way. But I love the advantage that the digital collage gives me, being able to put those elements together and see them next to one another. And then, I'll set up my computer right next to my canvas and work that way. This is my palette right here. And since I left school, my palette has been some variation of this. Cobalt blue, titanium white. My yellow is either like a cad yellow medium or an Indian yellow. And my red, I use a kind of mixed red of like a crimson and naphthol, or this kind of violet oxide. But it's usually one or the other. The yellow and the red are the two things that change. When I use the Indian yellow, I use the violet oxide. When I use the cadmium, I use the naphthol. And then when I begin to work, I work with a kind of block-in method. So, I draw things directly onto, the canvas or the panel. And then instead of doing a kind of detailed underpainting, kind of a brown underpainting where I kind of outline everything. I work in with these large blocks of color that get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as the painting progresses. So, you can see this is an early stage here. You can see already that things changing in that painting from one stage to the next. And we've got our addition of a cloud, which I didn't intend in the beginning. And then, as we get further on, all the details get added. As I said, again, these all begin with just like very large color swaths that get smaller and smaller. You can see my kind of, when I don't use the digital collage, the method that I use, just taping things directly to the panel. And then, finally, we end up with something like this, the final painting, which is a very weird one. Don't ask me to talk about it. I think it was a kind of a rapture painting. But sometimes I will begin something and it doesn't go where I want. So I begin this. I think this was going to be an expulsion painting, expulsion from the garden. I was going to have my Seraphin here, my Eve right there. So, I began painting it in, and I just decide it's just not working at all. So, this figure here becomes this, which became that, which I think I showed earlier as my Seraphin. And I think I'm happier with this than if this painting had worked. That turned into this, which I think the drawing does it more successfully than this does. Okay, but anyway, so looks like we're coming close to the time. I'll try to speed up a little bit. So, I did a lot of that work, in the early morning when I could, and sometimes at night in between, selling tubes of paint. And around 2013, I was in a show at Woodmere, and they purchased this painting for their collection. And then at the same time, I got a prize in that show, and I sold this painting from that show as well. And so I was like, I think I have an opportunity here. It was like, what if I can take this money, which wasn't, it was like $3,000 or something like that. I was like, what if I can take this and just take time off from work for like 3 months or something, and then see what happens. And then I could live that kind of, artist life that I thought that, in the beginning, working for a while, take 2-hour coffee breaks and come back, So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take time off from work, and I'm gonna see what happens. I'm gonna say 3 months, leave of absence. So when I got there, the things that I dealt with was time management. Suddenly I went from having a very small window of time to having a lot of it. And that was a hard change for me. I noticed when I would go into the studio for 6 hours maybe and come out with like 2 hours worth of work or something. And another thing that happened during that process was it was a kind of a lonely existence. I gotten really used to being able to engage all these other artists during the day, going to the studio for several hours, not seeing anybody. It was a hard one. But what happened was I did produce a lot of work during that time, and I began working smaller. So as a result, I began selling a lot of work too. And that 3 months turned into almost a year. I was able to like kind of roll it over again and again and again. It was month to month, and it was definitely tough there at times. It was a lot of ramen, but I rolled it over to like a year. before I got back into retail again. I learned a lot through that experience. One of the things being that I think I could do, that I was already being the artist that I wanted to be. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You know, like I was making work, I was showing my work, I was selling my work, and I got from it what I wanted. So I have this routine down. I'm working in retail again. I'm running a store. I've got a salary. It's all good. I'm very, very excited about it. I'm sharing a studio with my wife. This is her painting, Alyssa DeVille. We're splitting a studio together, and minding our own business, and somehow we get pregnant, right? I don't know what happened, but so there she is, and we've got our little baby boy here. So as a person who thrives on routine, I mean, that was like a serious kind of monkey wrench to that routine. Anybody with kids knows it is hard to plan around them, especially when they're that age. It's like, kind of forget what you planned. They make the plans now. Me and my wife kind of worked out a system where we would give each other time to work. I was looking through my photos, and I have 1 billion photos of these that we would send back and forth to each other, just rejoicing that he's sleeping. there's nap time, victory. So my studio practice went from this to this, and we tried so many different things to kind of work with them in the studio. It was tough, and during that time, my production kind of slowed down to a crawl. I had a solo show scheduled at that point, and it just like didn't happen. We postponed it. Here he is in the studio. Okay, I'm going to try to go a little faster because of the time. Here he is pictured making an ogre out of clay and trying not to fall asleep on the bus. So I figured out that I don't think I could, work 10 hours a day, come home to a baby and make paintings. It just wasn't working out for me. So I was like, well, maybe this is the time. I've been thinking about it for a while. Go back to school. So I went back to grad school at PAFA, and that gave me a lot of time to work, and it provided opportunities for growth for me. I began working in a bit more of a kind of free, kind of stream of consciousness style, a lot less precise, and a little more kind of responsive to the things around me, responsive to my unconscious. These are all very large drawings. So these are some of the examples of work that I made during that time at school. Very different, but kind of related. So present day, I'm making work that is something like this. I feel like it's maybe a blend of, the things that I used to do and kind of the things that I'm more into now, the kind of stream of consciousness response to things. I won't say that I have the time management thing down pat right now, but it's getting there. And our son is in preschool now, so we got some daytime back, and I'm teaching, so that gives me some time too. So I'm feeling like now that I am, creatively in a place where I can kind of get back on track, and I feel like I'm there too. I have a show coming up in July at Grossman Gallery at I think it opens July 10th, and that is basically a little bit of the solo show that would have happened before. It's kind of happening now, and I'm very excited about it. All right, I'm gonna wrap up. I'm looking at the time. that is everything. Thank you for joining me, guys.
Thank you, Sterling. Your work is beautiful, and thanks for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sterling. Unfortunately, we do not have time for questions, but that was such a rich story, and I'm glad we got to hear all of it, and to hear the evolution of yourself and your work and your personal life. It's really beautiful and inspiring. So thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. And yeah, have a great night, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Sterling.